The task now seems to be Biden talking about sending soldiers temporarily to Afghanistan. We will see what temporarily turns out to be in this context. Others are saying we now need to do a far better job than clearly has been done over the past day or so of getting people out of there, both those who are actually at the airport trying to leave and those who are potentially going to be targeted for either their service to the Afghan government, to the US soldiers there, or people who are in a variety of classes that simply might be targeted. Female academics, people involved in NGOs, a number of different groups like that. And so the US government has said in the coming days it would evacuate thousands of American citizens, embassy employees and their families, and quote, particularly vulnerable Afghan nationals. So does that mean translators? Is it broader than that? If so, how much broader? We don't necessarily know. But 5 Mediterranean countries on the forefront of past mass migration to Europe, Cyprus, Greece, Italy, Malta, and Spain, have requested European Union level talks on Wednesday about how to respond. There are also concerns about refugees flowing to Iran, Pakistan, and Turkey. And Canada said last week that it would resettle more than 20,000 Afghan citizens from groups it considers likely targets of the Taliban, including leading women rights workers and LGBTQ people. So I am assuming we're gonna see a lot more out of that. And I should also let you know that in about 2 hours or so, Biden is supposed to be speaking. We will see what direction he goes, or both, sending soldiers back in or getting people out of Afghanistan. So far, from what you're seeing, Francesca, how satisfied are you with the resettlement effort?
I mean, it is a start. It's good that talks may be starting to happen. I think it needs to continue to happen. And I think that President Biden should take leadership on this and should, use it as a point to turn around some of his kind of honestly disappointing immigration policies and say that, especially when it comes to Afghanistan, we have a moral responsibility to allow refugees to resettle and asylum seekers to live in the United States. And there's other things obviously the United States can do to make sure that Afghanistan, in terms of if the Taliban can be circumvented, to support on the ground organizations. I support that. I definitely support people doing that. I don't always trust where the United States government puts its funds, clearly. But I think, people to people and that kind of stuff. Look, we live in a globalized, digitized world. We can do those kinds of things. I don't know if I think we're gonna talk about the political stuff later. I am very curious as to what Joe Biden is gonna say, and I do have a lot of thoughts about it.
Yeah, I can only imagine who has been advising him and who has been trying to advise him. I mean, we've seen like some of the rogues gallery of people who got us into Afghanistan, many of them still working in media. They've learned a lot, I would guess. They don't seem to have. Still writing about it, op-eds. What does David Frum think, Francesca, about the war in Afghanistan? So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Is he gonna send 10,000 soldiers that are gonna be there for the next 5 years? Is it gonna become 20,000? I don't know. Like, they seem dead set on getting out, but Biden has responded negatively to crises like, more people coming across the southern border in ways that hardly seemed consistent with what he had said he was going to do. But also, like, we're talking about, our fears of how these different groups could potentially be affected. I mean, the Taliban is a group that had a very liberal idea of how often capital punishment should be used and how brutally it should be used. And now all of these people could potentially be at risk. But I also see some people expressing sort of similar opinions, and I fear that it is a cover for wanting to, continue the endless occupation in the same way that those sorts of concerns were trotted out about Iraq, before the war in Iraq as well. So I like to see more empathy on display in American political discourse, but sometimes I worry when foreign policy is the battleground. Empathy often seems like just another tool for them to use to give the defense contractors and the warmongers what they want. So
No, it is. That is exactly what it was. 20 years ago, it wasn't just 9/11. It moved to, well, we must have empathy for the Afghan women and the children and the people, and we need to free a nation. And it was like, okay, I guess we're doing that now. All right, what about the terrorists? Is like, no, okay, so that is what the war in Afghanistan quickly became. That's what the occupation became. And so Americans have had our empathy weaponized and propagandized against us in order to continue the occupation of Afghanistan, to promise that a new nation is, it's on the horizon. It is coming, it is gonna get here, and man, it's gonna be good. And okay, we were promised that once we leave, that new nation would be able to stand on its own 2 feet. Well, guess what? It took weeks. It took a day for Kabul to fall. So what were we actually doing in Afghanistan? We were lining the pockets of weapons contractors and others, many, many others. Not to mention propping up warlords who, may I remind you, not necessarily better than the Taliban. Let's just keep it 100 here about all that. And in the meantime, the media saying how bad it is going. Oh, it's so bad in Kabul, it's so bad. It's been bad. Soldiers have been at risk. Soldiers have been dying. Civilians have been displaced and dying. But you weren't covering it 2 weeks ago. You weren't covering it 4 weeks ago. You weren't covering it 18, you were not covering it so long as it maintained a status quo of a just awfulness, right? Like that no one was covering it, but now we want to talk about it, and now we care once again. So I am so sick and tired of having my empathy for the Afghan people be used in order to further a US imperial occupation of another country, all right? We need to end that. We need to understand what real solidarity and real empathy looks like, and it has nothing to do with a continuance of US military involvement in the Middle East.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.